Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am from Group 2. Will presentation about a constitution without constitutionalism, the path of constitutional development in China. Before I presentation, I will to introduce my group. First, Karimatun Anissa, second, Muhammad Ahsinul Amri, and the third, Nurfadila Dwi Engli. First, introduction. It is commonly understood that the enactment of laws is not to be confused with the rule of law, and that having a constitution is not the same thing as making it work. Mainland China exemplifies this conventional wisdom over the past 3 decades since the initiation of the economic and legal reform in 1978. China's lawmakers at all levels have enacted a variety of laws and regulations, yet the country is still grappling with the application of these laws to reality. If the absence of judicial review is the most obvious and direct cause for the lack of constitutionalism, a system of government committed to the enforcement of rules spelled out in the Constitution, it is also a superficial cause. Why not establish judicial review then, at least since 2001 when the Supreme People Court explicitly applied the 1982 Constitution for the first time. In one of its activist decisions, many constitutional scholars have argued to decide the second, why an unenforced constitution still may be useful. The constitution is dead by Western standards. China's constitution is dead letter, contrary to a living constitution which virtually grows as it is applied and adapted to a changing social reality. China's constitution lacks any meaningful mechanism for implementation and is left unguarded against official violation. It declares a long list of good ideals without the capacity to fulfill any. One can easily find unfulfilled promise and positive violation of the stark constitutional norms in the daily life. To use Giovanni's statutory term, it is simply a facade, which seems to be useful, if at all, only for improving the government image, stark as it seems from the Western perspective. The disparity between the constitutional norms and reality is anything but extraordinary in the context of China's story. For example, if the local government are benefiting from land taking without just compensation, it is counterintuitive to imagine that the official involved will enforce the constitutional requirement of just compensation. Without an institutional mechanism able to compel such enforcement effectively, this part of the Constitution will surely be left unenforced. Thus, as long as the government find a incentive in enacting good laws, but a disincentive in enforcing them, then laws and reality will never coincide. They have never been wholly current in any country. However, in an authoritarian state, where the enforcement of law is systematically discounted, the laws and reality they pertain to will differ by several orders of magnitude. Long live the Constitution! Since China constitutionalism has remained dead or at best dormant so far, does it make any sense to talk about its constitution at all? Well, it does and does not. It is true that many people are understandably frustrated by the deplorable state of China constitutionalism, and that the current constitution is a mere facade with many unenforced decorative norms. However, that does not mean that the constitution is of no use. If self-interest officials are inclined naturally to ignore the constitution, more people may begin to take it seriously because, after all, it is supposedly for their interest to the Constitution was made for the first place. In fact, almost on a daily basis, one easily can find on the internet reports of new incidents where votes in dispute to government officials. This frequent episode can fail to pressure the central government to take some action to restore the damaged image. Second, it is not entirely accurate to picture an authoritarian regime as a narrowly selfish organism, purely interested in its own self-preservation and perpetuation. It is also to be remembered that the central government itself had made openness and transparency and objective to be achieved by government at all levels, a project culminating in the regulation of the disclosure of government information.
The rise and fall of official constitutionalism. The rise of the first constitutional case, as a surprise the case of Qiulin Vicensioki et al., has now become a desolate milestone in the constitutional history of China. 28 in 1990 passed the professional examination for entrance to a specialist profession and was admitted by Jining Commercial School. After she broke the litigation, the middle-level court of Tongzhou, Shandong Province, ordered the defendants to pay 35,000 yuan for the mental damage caused by infringing his right to hear name, but declined to provide a remedy for the alleged violation of her right to education provided for under Article 46 of the 1982 Constitution. Limitation and damage. Unfortunately, subsection development caused the prospect of developing constitutionally enforceable rights. Chinese judges have not taken any step to consolidate their powers based on the first constitutional case. On the contrary, they have chosen to avoid invoking the Constitution. Since 2001, there has not been a single constitutional case, so to speak. This is not to say that mainland China has not made any progress on constitutional issue. The victim charged that such a hold criterion constitute a violation of his equal right to hold a public post as protected by Article 33 of the Constitution, which provides that all citizens are equal before law. The court of Wuhu City held the rejection of admission invalid on the ground of insufficient evidence, but it avoided the constitutional question altogether. In fact, the chief judge of the administrative section of Anhui High Court seemed to believe that the Constitution was inapplicable because the equality clause is limited only to the erroneous application of law rather than to the legal classification themselves. 33. Such a limited interpretation, once taken for granted by China legal community, has been discarded for at least 2 decades. The decision so simple that the ordinary courts in China lack both the courage and knowledge to apply the Constitution properly. Indeed, the rise and fall of the Qiulin decisions can be understood properly only in the broader context of judicial reform, which the former SPC President Zhigang initiated in 1999. 38. Undertaking to make China judge in real sense. 37, this ambitious reform aimed to professionalize the hitherto politicized courts, and it did manage to modify the judicial image somewhat from army uniform and start epaulets to gavel and black counter. However, it failed to change the judge's basic thinking and more fundamentally the power structure both within and outside the courts, particularly the relationship between the courts and the ruling party. Just as the judges are under the leadership of the court president, the president is under the leadership of the party, making the judicial structure as a whole prone to political interference. Of significance and legacy, the Zhigang incident did more than a notorious system which had arbitrarily limited personal freedom, particularly that of the peasants who constitute the overwhelming majority of this populous country. It triggered a series of civil rights movements that resulted in or had a significant impact on a number of important legal and institutional reforms in China. These include ongoing reform of the household resident system, 49 the education through labor program, criminal justice and capital punishment, 5 the land taking and city renovation project that involve the compulsory demolition of residential houses. These developments have been facilitated by the public land ownership scheme, or more precisely, the unchecked power of local government in regulation the right to use land and the lack of a constitutional requirement for just compensation. The state of affairs created an enormous official incentive for overdevelopment and the excessive taking of properties. 5 the taking without just compensation deprived many peasant and city residents of their basic means of living and contribute to the vast majority of complaints and appeals to their superior jurisdiction. They become the primary cause of violent social conflict on a massive scale. 15 in 2004, China amended its constitution, requiring for the first time since 1490 that the state protect lawful private property and provide compensation for the taking of property for the purpose of public interest. The emergence of populist constitutionalism, the Zhigang incident and its legacy. The emergence of populist constitutionalism, the Zhigang incident and its legacy. The judicial innovation illustrated in the Kiyulin case is representative of the official effort to improve institutional performance or to correct official wrongs. However, such efforts are few and far between, and without popular support, they usually die out with little sustained impact. Still, this does not mean that China has failed to achieve an constitutional progress during the last 3 decades, from the abolition of the People's Communist, which reduced nearly 1 billion peasants to serfdom, and the establishment of the family responsibility system, which recognized their basic right to use the farmland and produce for their own profit, to the abolition of the detention and repatriation scheme and the reform of the household residence system. apparently having quarreled with the management personnel about his treatment. He was battered by fellow inmates and died a few days later. 14. Why? The medical record in the official report asserted that he died of heart attack and a cerebrovascular accident. A claim belied by the autopsy report that displayed massive bruises on his back for over a month following, despite strenuous efforts by son's relatives and friends. The Guangzhou City Police refused to explain the true cause of son's death. The silence was broken first by a new report of the then outspoken South Metropolitan Daily entitled "Was Salt be responsible for a citizen abnormal death?" 14.2, which triggered a mounting public outcry, mainly on internet, although the son's Zhigang tragedy inspired intensifying moral condemnation. The Chinese public did not stop at condemning the official mischief, but took the further step of questioning the legitimacy of the DR system itself, an institution that had caused many past tragedies by authorizing the local police to detain and repatriate those regulations.